What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the podcast. As always, I am your host, Justin Harold, and with me, my co host, Jeff Santa. This is the Cleveland Pulse Podcast, episode 22, where we will be reviewing the trade deadline for the NFL, the Cleveland Browns, and be talking about the state of the Browns halfway through the season so far. So, with that, Jeff, how you doing, my guy?
Good. I think we're gonna have interesting trade deadline talk. I'm gonna be pulling in some other resources. I got stuff. I got things in my mind. I'll save
Yeah,
it.
yeah, you were, me and you texted. Obviously, we always text about the Browns and everything with the podcast happening. So, you were on the angry side of the podcast or on the angry side of the opinions for what happened at the trade deadline. Obviously, if you aren't up to date, the Browns did not make any moves. They decided to stay quiet. Really, the only rumors that came out leading up to the trade deadline were Browns were shopping Olivier Vernon and maybe shopping David Njoku. But besides that, they weren't really connected to any. Oh, maybe Jeff will prove me wrong, but they weren't really connected to any outside players on any other teams from what I know of. The one trade that happened throughout the NFL that actually made me the most upset is the Quan Alexander to the Saints trade. Quite
Mm-hmm.
literally one of my favorite linebackers, would have been a huge addition to the Browns linebacking core, but it happened. The Browns didn't make a move. I mean, Jack, I could even pull up the text, but I'm not going to. Jeff was not happy about this, and so Jeff, I'm gonna let you go and get your little rant on and see what you got to say about this, and then we'll talk.
This is gonna be shocking to you because of some narratives around the city, But Barry, Andrew Barry needs to take a page out of the Cleveland Indians organization, their playbook over there, because they've been successful at trade deadlines, doing it all. I know baseball is a little different than football, but people give the Dolans crap and people give the Indians crap, but this was, I mean, is it the end of the world we didn't make a move? No. Is it disappointing we didn't make a move? Absolutely. For a couple reasons. One, we're 5-3. And we know what needs help. We know our defense needs help. Like, it's not kind of like, oh, let's go make a move. We don't really need to make a move. We need to make a move? No. Could we have used a guy on the defensive side of the ball? Yes, we could have. We actually need. It's not like we wanted to go get someone. We actually kind of need people on the defensive side of the ball with injuries and what may have you. Two, so the whole argument is that, like, I guess we have defenders on the team, but they're not healthy. Okay, I understand that, but there's two other there's the Ravens and the Steelers in our division who have better defenses than us. They have, people that are hurt. They still went and made moves. Um, Baltimore goes out and grabs the defensive lineman, and the Steelers, they go and get a linebacker because Devin Bush goes down. Like, I mean, that was probably the biggest frustrating moment for me. And it's not like one player would have helped this defense, would have completely fixed it, but it could have made a huge difference, regardless of who it was. Even if it's not, Gilmore from the Patriots, Quan Alexander, big point. I don't know why we did. Did we even try to ask for Ryan Kerrigan? That I would have loved to maybe try to make a move for him. And just other teams around the league making move. The Titans get a cornerback. Like, they know their defense isn't as what it was last year so far. They go and get some guy for the cheap. But it's just like, we're 5-3. We still got good teams left to play. Why don't just try to get into the playoffs this year? Just try your hardest for one season to get into the playoffs and see what that unfolds. I mean, sometimes it only takes one season to get into the playoffs. Look at the Buffalo Bills, literally brutal for as long as I could remember. They get into the playoffs, however many years ago that was, a couple, 3 or 4, or 2 or 3, and then now they look like a totally different franchise.
Yeah, so Jeff, honestly, you bring up a lot of good points. First of all, the best point there is the fact that we are 5-3. We have positions on the defense that quite literally could use just one player to just strengthen it in general, and we do this franchise would take such a step in the right direction, like you're saying with the Bills. If we made the playoffs, it would swing just the storyline around Cleveland and the momentum around the Browns in terms of what they can do. Obviously, this season we have a very easy schedule, which is a very good thing when you think about it because this team has a lot of young players. It's still one of the youngest teams in the league. So to be able to get an easier schedule and be able to play it and potentially make the playoffs with it is a great stepping stone in the right direction. My thing is, and I kind of poked and prodded you a little bit through our text messages about why we didn't make any of these moves, whatever. I told you I'd wait until Thursday to explain it to you. So with that, you listed the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Titans. Now that alone is the big talking point for me. Is those teams are all teams that can contend for the Super Bowl right now. And to be fair, the Browns, we've seen it this season. They've looked good, but they haven't looked great. They're not going to win a Super Bowl. They're not even really going to contend for a Super Bowl. That's why those teams went out there and made moves to, shore up their defenses. Titans, Ravens, Steelers, they're all playoff teams. So with that, no need to go out and try to not break the bank, but also not to do something that's unnecessary where you give up draft capital, which is my next talking point. If you look at the Steelers defense, I think the Steelers I give them so much credit because obviously I hate them and everything, but their defense is almost all like draft picks that they've made.
Yep.
Bud Dupree and TJ Watt are two of the best. They're that duo is so amazing. Watching them go against us was one of the most fearful things that I've seen. I mean, they continue to grow too. It's like, you talk about the Indians and growing talent in their farm. Well, the Steelers do that with their team every year through the draft. And so that's my point is that you got to start to work towards being those kind of playoff teams through the off season. And so, we took a step this past year. We added some key guys, we attacked targets on our positions like right tackle, left tackle, went out, got Austin Hooper, which was, for what we're doing on the offensive side of the ball was a huge move. So, we spent a lot of time on the offense this past year. And so now I think moving forward, you'll go into the draft this year and you'll see that the first couple picks unless, something happens with wide receiver right now, I think you won't see a offensive pick until, after 3 selections are made. That's my personal opinion on that as of right now. But also another point is that there are a lot of guys on both sides of the ball. Actually, maybe not a little bit. There's a couple guys on the team that were brought in on 1-year deals. Carl Joseph was brought in on a 1-year deal. Andrew Sendejo was brought in on a 1-year deal. BJ Goodson was brought in on a 1-year deal. Kevin Johnson was brought in on a 1-year deal. These are all guys that are playing for extensions and to prove that they deserve to be on this team next year. If I had it my way, and this is the end of the season right now, the only player outside of all those guys that would be on this team is probably Kevin Johnson. And so, you have to assess, who does well, who does bad. Carl Joseph, I can make an argument for him maybe, but he's also been injured, which has been the knock on him in his entire career. So there's a lot to go off of there. That's why, all those points I just made are reasons to not invest in the defense because you're going to invest in the defense in the offseason. So you got to be able to fix what you can. You did say that, there are guys that are hurt on our team. Grant Delpit, that's why no one wanted to go out and grab a safety because they believe Grant Delpit and Ronnie Harrison Jr. are the future of the Browns for right now. Those will be our free safety and strong safety next year. And then, you can go out and make a move and maybe push for the playoffs. But I think internally they believe that they have players that if they get healthy, they can make the adjustments on defense and, be able to win out the games that they need to win out to make the playoffs. But for right now, I'm pretty satisfied where they are. I think they're taking the right direction of the team and moving towards something that could be great for not just this year, but for years to come.
Okay, with basically everything you just said, I would agree with you. I would agree with you 99.9% of the time, maybe just 99% of the time, except for the fact that we are the Cleveland Browns. All right, Tennessee Super Bowl contender, stretch. That's a stretch to me. They just lost to Cincinnati. And they don't add a huge piece, but they still go, Vrabel still is looking to go add somebody, and he's defensive minded. I know we have a head coach who's offensive minded. I mean, I don't really think that should take into consideration of, what really happens. I mean, if Barry's, hopefully doing most of it. And I just think the Indians do a great job. I bring up the Indians because they do a great job of putting them together. Lindor, Jose, Roberto Perez, all guys that have been brought up through the system. Then you add some, other key pieces at the trade deadline. You add Franmil Reyes and Brad Hand a couple years ago. We signed Cesar Hernandez over this offseason. So they do a good job of doing it both. And that's what I really think is like the key to success is, you need to develop your own guys and you need to make moves. But this is and the other point, kind of moving all over the place, but
I'm sorry, I had a lot there. I kind of didn't like breathe or anything during that whole thing.
It's a pretty, it's a lot to talk about, but the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Titans all have less cap space than us. That's another reason we got the most cap space in the league. I know that we're not a Super Bowl contender, but if you make the playoffs, here's the thing about making the playoffs. And that between me and you both know Stefanski should already get a second year. That the culture of the city, it could be up in the air. I mean, right now he should get a second year, but if we miss the playoffs and, and just say we just take a tumble the second half, there's going to be people calling for him to be fired. We've seen this in the past. We've seen, I'm not saying that the organization, bases decisions off of like the media narrative and stuff. But I mean, Freddie Kitchens was a shoo-in to have a second year, a couple games into the year. And then, obviously he doesn't, it's a complete mess. So there's always a chance for it to turn to mess. But this is kind of my final point. This is the biggest offseason in the franchise of the Browns that we've ever seen, me and you've ever seen. And that's taken into consideration the last two off seasons where we've added Austin Hooper and other pieces. And 2 years ago, we added OBJ. So I think while this trade isn't needed, it kind of alleviates some of the stress of the offseason. Now, here's all the things we got to do in the offseason. Let's just say we don't make the playoffs. You're going to have people talking about Stefanski if we don't make the playoffs. It's true. I'm not saying it's warranted. It's true. If we end up 8-8, they're going to be calling for his head. 7-9, they're going to be calling for it. 2, you got to decide about Baker. Good luck with that if we miss the playoffs. If we make the playoffs, Stefanski gets a second year. You pay Baker, hopefully a considerable amount. That gets off the table right away. Now we have to deal with Njoku and OBJ wanting out, and we have to deal with all those guys that are on a first-year deal that you just talked about. So, I mean, Andrew Berry, maybe makes a smart move, not doing anything this trade deadline. Now he better start prepping now for the offseason. We're only 8 weeks in.
Yeah, so now we're kind of moving into a little bit more of like a halfway season thing. But Jeff, I don't think there's, if there are any people that want to call for Kevin Stefanski's head, it's going to be like 1/10 or 2/10 of the franchise of like the fan base. We're
5-3. If we go 2-6 these last 8 games,
but Jeff, this time last year, like you're comparing Freddie Kitchens to Kevin Stefanski. Kevin Stefanski doesn't look clueless on the offensive side of the ball compared to Freddie Kitchens. So there's that. Also, the record
looks clueless at times.
But it hasn't looked to the degree that Freddie Kitchens has. I mean, like maybe 2 plays have looked bad each game, but Kevin Stefanski is going to be here for a long time. The regime before had John Dorsey, who was going on a couple years, and things didn't work out. They completely shoved everything out the door, brought in a whole new regime in terms of GM, coach, and everything. So, from that point, I don't think there's really going to be any controversy. My biggest thing about Odell and Njoku is, Njoku plays well enough. I wouldn't mind having him here. If he doesn't want to be here, then we'll release him. He won't take our contract. That's fine. Odell, it needs to be a decision by him, in my opinion, if he wants to stay here or not. A lot of people in the media believe that, if the Browns were to make the playoffs, that's when they would truly suffer without Odell. And yeah, they're probably right, because you need a star wide receiver, I think. I understand, in my personal opinion, I've even said that Odell is kind of the reason why Baker has digressed and has done poorly. He looks better without Odell. But I think Odell needs to watch the rest of the season and watch how Baker plays without him to understand that Baker, when he's not forced to try to allocate passes and catches to Odell, the game opens up for the offense. And if the game can open up for the entire offense, then it's going to open up the game for him. And so it's just kind of like an understanding point with Odell and everything. So, we can move off of the whole trade deadline thing at this point. Honestly, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think there are players within the organization that can, sustain what we have, sustain the momentum that we have at 5-3. We just got to be able to beat out teams that we should win against. And if we can maybe steal a game from a team that we're not supposed to win against, then good on us. But the projection of this season is still, if anyone had told you that we'd be 5-3 at the bye week, and we've missed Odell Beckham Jr. for a game and Nick Chubb for a couple games, and before he got hurt, one of the best graded right guard in the league, your free safety who you drafted in the second round was hurt. A lot of people probably wouldn't believe you 5-3, but that is what it is.
Spot.
And yeah, it's a great spot. It's one of the best spots that we've been in. You just got to work through some things.
It's a good spot. I honestly don't think it's a great spot. I think it's a good spot. And I know it's interesting. We've seen a team that was this good in the past. Actually, since we've been alive and we could remember, we've seen a team that's actually been this good. Now the 2014 Browns, roll it back a little bit. Mike Pettin, by the way, 6-3 through the first 9 games.
And then Brian Hoyer gets hurt.
And then they end up 7-9.
Brian Hoyer gets hurt. I believe that's what the storyline is. I believe Brian Hoyer gets hurt in that season. Team's way better, but is the defense way better? I don't know. I can't remember the defense from 2014. I can remember a name from that 2014 team, and I can remember it solely because we played the Bengals on like a Thursday night, and he got mic'd up or something. Paul Kruger, remember? He was like a Baltimore Raven for a period of time.
Did we draft Barkevious Mingo in 2014?
Yeah, I think so. I think Barkevious Mingo was on.
That's good. That's your throwback Browns player of the episode.
Yeah, right. Buster Screen. Joe Hayden was still a Brown, I think. I think he was 2014.
Oh yeah, had to be.
Yeah, but 2014, man, I want to say the backup quarterbacks. We had multiple backup quarterbacks because I don't think that was yet the year that we had drafted Johnny Manziel. So
right,
Manziel
was 15.
Yeah, there were a plethora of quarterbacks that tried to fill the void for Brian Hoyer, but yeah, I mean, I don't see that problem happening this year. And I think that the Browns are sitting pretty. They still have one of the easiest schedules to go. But Jeff, before we get into the rest of the schedule, let's take a trip down memory lane really quickly with the season so far. And so let's talk about some of these games. So let's go back. First game of the season. Browns versus Ravens. Obviously, when we did our preseason predictions, you had this as a loss. I had this as a win. 6-38. Obviously, you were right. The Ravens kind of pounded us, but I chalked this up to us just not having a preseason and not having a lot of a offseason in general after obtaining a new head coach and new GM and everything. But what are you thinking? What are you thinking about this?
I mean, so here's how I'm kind of looking at these first 8 weeks. The Ravens and the Steelers game, we'll just scrap them.
Yeah.
And without, just in case you want to go into like greater detail of individual games, those are the two. Just like there's nothing really more to touch on there. We just kind of get beat. They're better than us right now.
Yep.
The interesting thing is that through 8 games, we're 3-3 against AFC opponents, and 2 out of the 3 wins come from the Bengals. So we talked about the Bengals sweep being good. I think the Bengals are a little bit better than people think they are. Maybe not. Maybe people think they're decent. They're just kind of getting unlucky, losing close games. But I mean, great to pick up those Bengals wins. The week 2 Bengals win kind of just looks like a little bit fortunate. We catch them week 2 because they were not as good as they were week 2 as they were week 7. The other games, they're good, hard fought. Gotta win games, outside of
Washington.
your division. But I mean, kind of just we're in a like I said, I think we're in a good spot. We there's games that there isn't a game that I'm mad at that we've really lost besides the Raiders game. At this point in a lot of other seasons, you could probably say, "Oh, we should have won this game. Should have won this game. Should have won this game." Should we have won the Raiders game? Probably not, but we could have, and that's a little bit frustrating. Every other loss, fair and square.
Yeah, I mean, you go through the weeks, and you talked about that. I talked about that first week loss, but then you go on a 4-game winning streak against the Bengals, Washington, teams that you should beat for sure, and then the Cowboys. Grant, they're awful now without Dak Prescott, but that game was a game that we wwere winning very thoroughly, and then they came back and made it really close to the end. But we were 4-1 at that point, or 3-1 at that point, going into the Colts game, who, before that game, they were touted as a top defense and a very solid team in general. We come out, and I think that's our most dominant win. I know that the scoreboard for the Washington and the Cowboys games are a little bit close, or a little bit further away than what the Colts game was, but I always felt we were in control of that one. The Cowboys kind of brought it back really close, and the Redskins held a lead at some point in those games. But then you talk about, the Steelers and Baltimore game. Those games were awful. Nothing to really talk about. Beat the Bengals again. Games, sweep the Bengals. Great thing. The Raiders game, like you said, a game that unfortunately we lost. If weather and other circumstances were different, maybe we win that game, but we don't. Again, 5-3 for me, it's nothing to be upset about. I'm really not upset about anything.
Yep.
Truly, I just think it's a great spot to be in, especially with the rest of our schedule. So, Jeff, what else do you got to say about that really quickly?
No, I agree with you. I mean, should we be a little bit? Should we have a better record? Maybe. Should we have that's probably your biggest highlight right there. Should we have a better record? Maybe. Should we have a worse record? No. So that's probably your biggest takeaway. I know the rest of our schedule is not that easy. I'm gonna put that out there right now. It's really not. It teams that are just, I don't know. You can't really. I think I'd rather play a team that has a decently, like, that has played consistently, one way or the other. There's some teams on the remainder of our schedule where you don't really know who you're going to get from them. You don't know if you're going to get their best or if you're going to get their average or their worst. I'd rather play a team they're going to be average than a team that could play really well. And I'm just looking at some squads where, I mean, that could be the case.
I mean, the only games I would consider those, like you would say how you would put it, a trap game, is maybe the Texans game and maybe the Eagles game. Honestly, those are the two teams that have the worst records left on our schedule, and are teams that potentially just have been playing against better teams in general. I think, the Texans have had a hard schedule. They played the
One of the
Chiefs, the
hardest.
Ravens, the Steelers, the Packers, the Titans.
Yep.
The Vikings are weird. They beat the Texans, but the only win that the Texans got this season was against the Jaguars, and it wasn't even that impressive. And then, the Eagles, I wish we were in their division. My God.
Me too. Everyone in the league does.
Yeah, I mean, that's just nuts. But I mean, again, they lost to Washington, they lost to the Rams, they tied with the Bengals, beat the 49ers when the 49ers were banged up, lost to the Steelers.
Play good against the Steelers, play good against the Ravens. That's what's
Yeah.
making me nervous. Here's what I'm looking at. Texans, here's what Browns head coaches need to start doing. Kevin Stefanski, listen up. I know he tunes in all the time every week. Got to win out of the bye. You're at home out of the bye. This is a no excuse. I don't care really who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing the Chiefs or the Steelers. Win out of the bye. All right. If you lose to the Chiefs or Steelers, that's fine. Eagles, good thing that game's at home because I just love playing at home. But the Eagles, I don't know what we're going to get from them. They might have people healthy by then. You never know. Jaguars, got to be a win. And then this 4 stretch of games, Titans to Jets, week 15 is terrifying me. Got to go at Tennessee. They're good.
Yes.
I think there's a good chance we lose that game. Got to play Baltimore. I think if something, hopefully we're in peak form going into week 12. Because if we lose to the Titans, we lose to the Ravens, then we got to go play at the Giants. The Giants are not getting blown out. They are losing, but they're not getting blown out.
Jeff, I'm not even going to discuss this. We're going to beat the Giants. I'm
Dude,
not
I've
even going to
seen
discuss
this before.
it.
I've literally seen this before. We saw it last year. I know it's totally different, but I've seen the Browns lose 2 games in a row to better talent, and then they lose to a bad team, and now we're on a 3-game winning streak at the Jets at that terrible turf. Why are we playing there? We're going to play at MetLife again? Are we playing at MetLife? No, we're playing at MetLife 2 weeks in a row. Are we?
Yes.
We're screwed.
Dude, we're fine.
We're screwed. The turf has been taking ACLs there. Oh my God. NFL, flex those games. I want to play somewhere else. I'm stressed.
You didn't even want to mention the last game, which is the Steelers game at home, where
you have been talking. 15-1. Hopefully they're 14-1, and we could get it. We could play Sam. We could play whoever. Rudolph.
I don't think that'll happen, but Jeff, I think we'll be fine. I mean, honestly, the way I have the rest of this season chalked up for us is a win against the Texans, a win against the Eagles, a win against the Jaguars. We're 8-3. That's pretty crazy. We lose to the Titans, we're 8-4. We lose to the Ravens, we're 8-5. We beat the Giants 9-5, beat the Jets 10-5. Steelers, if they play their people, we're probably 10-6. If they don't, we're 11-5.
That was my preseason prediction. 10-6. 10-6. Ceiling in parentheses, like the Raiders fan in our comments, plus playoff appearance. But I don't think Andrew Berry really cares about the playoffs that much.
Oh my goodness, he makes no trade deadline moves. It's not like it's the end of the world. We'll be fine. I mean, honestly, this team has looked so good. I think, for real, you get Nick Chubb back, the offense gets back on track. Even with Wyatt Teller, you get him back.
Got to get healthy this week.
Austin Hooper,
Hooper at practice yesterday, good.
Yeah, we'll see with, I don't really think we can judge yet with Baker how he'll do without Odell because of how bad the conditions were. Baker had the most drop balls in week 8 of any quarterback. So that tells you how bad the weather was and how bad, receivers played in general for that game. I don't know that Odell really helps that case, but that's what happened. I think going forward, we'll get to see a lot more of how Baker does, how the offense does. And the offense is going to have to carry us in a lot of these games. Honestly, I don't think the defense is suited to stop a lot of teams offensively, unless Joe Woods figures out, what's going on. If he makes some moves, I said it before. You don't fix what's not broken. You lose the game before the bye, and there's room for improvements. There's room to, okay, Andrew, everyone online is saying that you're awful. I've looked at the tapes, and I've come to the conclusion that yes, you are awful and you need to be sat down and play some special teams. Put Redwine there, put Ronnie Harrison there, put anyone that's not Andrew Sendejo in the free safety position in the deep middle of the coverage. And I think that shores up a lot of the defense. And then you got to find ways to get the linebackers to get situated, because at this point they're the worst part of our defense. And we need to figure some things out there. So, but besides that, I mean, I'm pretty optimistic for the rest of the season. I don't know. I think you are too, but being a little bit biased here. going
I'm
back
I-
to the
I'm optimistic for this week because here's the interesting thing about the bye week. In the past, Browns fans love the bye week. We can't lose, but you also can't win now. But I love watching the scoreboards, and I love watching. I watch a lot of NFL football,
it's
and
red zone.
this week in the AFC is looking real good for the Browns on a bye. Seattle at Buffalo, Chicago. Buffalo's ahead of us. Chicago at Tennessee. Tennessee's ahead of us. Baltimore at Indianapolis. I think we would like to see the Colts win that game because we have the head-to-head to them with them. I think we don't care about the Chiefs.
I don't think we're gonna make enough room to have the Ravens do anything. So I rather have them win than lose and just kind of.
No, if they lose, they're 5-3.
I don't know. Maybe they're getting worse. I just haven't really been watching them. Lamar had a
There's
pretty
just
bad
some
game
good.
against.
We could pick up some games this week not playing. Is my
Yeah,
point.
I get you. My fault. I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
No, you're good.
So, but yeah, I mean, who knows? This is obviously bye week. Not a lot to talk about. So that's all I got for this. But Jeff, you want to talk about anything else, my guy?
We got a couple quick shout outs. Not gonna dive into it. I'm gonna start with the bad. Cleveland Indians fans, doesn't sound like Lindor's going to be here. That's all we really got to say about that. Maybe we'll have a whole different little episode for that. But just want to touch on Shane Bieber, American League Cy Young finalist, Jose Ramirez American League MVP finalist. So I saw somebody tweeted. I saw some of the tweets that tweeted the other day. It said the 2010s was the best decade of Cleveland sports ever. And that just got me thinking. I got to agree.
That can't be true.
How we won the? When the
NFL didn't have the Super Bowl, when the Browns didn't have the Super Bowl, the Browns were the best football team in the league for a period of time. And I also think that matches.
In the last 30 years.
Well, you said of all time for Cleveland history.
That's just what somebody tweeted. I mean, we were winning non-Super Bowls. We were winning the championships, even with the Browns being so bad in the 2010s. Think about that. The Indians good and Cavs obviously 2016.
Were the Indians good for all of the 2010s though?
Yes, good majority of it. Yeah.
When did Tito get here?
2013. I think there's 6 or 7 straight.
Okay, yeah. So the majority of it then, and
yeah.
But Cavs.
It's a good decade for Cleveland sports.
Cavs weren't even good for like 5 years within the 10s.
Who cares?
I mean, I'm glad Kyrie was here for some time before LeBron got here and we were relevant again. But
we saw the first Cleveland sports championship in me and you.
Yeah, I agree. But like,
let's just make the 2020s better.
We should. You know what? If you take everything outside of 2016 and you say those years don't count, then yeah. The 2010s were great for
gotta take them when you can get them.
Yeah, but yeah, the NBA draft is coming up. I believe
we got some other stuff to talk about. We'll fit into all the Browns being their favorite team. So we don't mean to be depriving you, but we'll fit in a non-Browns episode here shortly.
Yeah, we'll get one in real quick. The NBA draft coming up very soon. Some controversy within the Cavs organization about a certain player and contract extensions, and Indians receiving some awards and new rumor about Francisco Lindor. So all stuff that we can talk about. So, but Jeff, again, you got anything else?
No, I'm all good. I'm high energy today.
All right, sounds good. He's got his coffee in him. So, all right, everyone. Well, I'm going to call it there. Thank you all for joining us again. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you guys could please subscribe, like, comment on both of our Twitter, our social medias, on YouTube. All of it would be very appreciated. And we look forward to hearing from you. Peace.